Hey everyone, I'm Mike. It's funny, Barnabay's penultimate slide had a circle with builders surrounded by a set of validators, and kind of coincidentally, my opening slide has a very similar picture. So yeah, I guess there's a Schelling point there. But yeah, hey, I'm Mike, and I'm going to be talking about LSTs and LRTs. Is restaking the new staking? And I'm going to kind of start with the second question and then move and use that to motivate discussing about LSTs and LRTs and kind of defining what those are. Yeah, this is kind of mostly a graphical presentation, so hopefully we can kind of start from the beginning and build up together. Cool, quick outline. Oh, have to start my timer. Nice. Okay, so starting from kind of the very beginning, we're just going to define kind of two modes of staking that feel like the right place to start. First is self-staking, the second is delegated staking. Then we'll kind of get into this concept of restaking and defining it. There's 4 different models I want to explore. Again, using like the self and delegated separation, but then focusing on kind of native restaking versus non-native restaking. We'll define those terms. Then we'll go into this, this liquefaction thing, which is kind of talking about both of these models for liquid tokens, the liquid staking and liquid restaking tokens. We'll motivate kind of this kind of case study by looking at slashing and restaking, and then going into both of the token types. And then lastly, we'll finish up with a short slide on kind of some data around the staking as it exists today in Ethereum, and looking at kind of how prevalent these different modes of staking are. Cool. So starting very much at the beginning, we have this staking where Alice is doing it herself. So she interacts directly with the Ethereum protocol. She puts stake into the protocol, and she's rewarded for doing so, directly through the issuance of the native token. So here in the Ethereum case, Alice stakes 32 ETH. She gets rewarded in ETH terms for participating in consensus. And there's kind of two different things to focus on here. First is staking serves as this anti-Sybil mechanism, right? You can't kind of trick the network into saying that you have many identities, because each of those identities costs a certain amount of this fixed supply of tokens. The second is this collateral at risk. This is kind of the protocol rule stuff that Casper was talking about earlier in terms of slashing. So if Alice misbehaves according to some like very well-defined specification, then the protocol will take away her capital and punish her for doing so. Cool. Delegated staking adds kind of another layer in the middle between Alice and the protocol. So we have Bob. Alice now delegates to Bob, who stakes to the Ethereum protocol. The rewards are now sent to Bob, and the rewards less fees are kind of forwarded onto Alice. So this is like kind of the simplest version of delegated staking, where Alice doesn't actually want to run the software herself. Maybe she doesn't have 32 full ETH. Maybe she doesn't have the hardware to spin up and technical expertise to run the validator. So instead, she kind of delegates that service to Bob in exchange for a fee. And there's kind of many different modes of this delegation at various levels of trust. The kind of most trusted version is custodial. So this is just, I take my ETH and send it to Coinbase and say, hey, stake on my behalf. You like effectively trust them kind of entirely because they're custodying the asset in your name. There's a non-custodial but DAO-governed version here where I delegate my stake to someone. That someone is determined by a DAO. That DAO might vote on who gets to run the nodes. This is kind of the Lido-style staking. And the third one is this kind of trust-minimized one where both Alice and Bob put up some collateral. So Alice kind of subsidizes the rest of Bob's collateral. And if Bob misbehaves and gets slashed, his collateral is kind of the first tranche that gets removed. I say trust minimized and not trustless here because no matter what, Bob, like there is worlds in which Alice's collateral is completely wiped depending on what Bob does. So there is still some level of trust, even if that trust is very thin. Cool. So that's kind of staking as a whole. Or I guess the two modes of staking that I wanted to focus on. And now we can talk about what restaking is. And this is kind of a brand new concept. It's been around, I guess, since Sriram and Eigenlayer introduced the term maybe like 1.5 years or 2 years ago. Kind of fun fact, he actually introduced the term at the original, I think it was a dev con event run by the rig team, right? Where he first like presented the paper, something like that. But anyway, I think it was end of 2022. Right. So self-restaking, parentheses, native. So in this model, Alice is kind of doing the same thing she was doing before. She sends her stake to the Ethereum protocol. The Ethereum protocol gives her rewards for participating in consensus. And now we have a new protocol called the Ethereum protocol, which Alice restakes to. And the important thing here is she's using the same tokens that she's staking in the Ethereum protocol that she does to secure this second protocol called Ethereum. And she gets rewards for that. So this kind of seems, this is great, right? I'm Alice. I have now double the reward potentially for the same amount of stake. Like that seems ideal. Right. And the kind of the negative side of this, or kind of the risk that Alice takes on, is the capital that she has staked in both of these protocols is now encumbered by both of the protocol rules. So if Alice misbehaves in Ethereum, she can lose her capital by being slashed. If she misbehaves in Ethereum, then she can also misbehave. And get slashed in that case too. So it's kind of like with additional yield comes additional kind of responsibilities, protocol behaviors that are mandated, and those behaviors are punishable kind of in further ways if you encumber your ETH or your staking token kind of across many different protocols. So this is kind of the simplest form of restaking, which is self-restaking. So Alice is running both of these protocols concurrently on her own machine and with her own capital. So you can probably see how this is going to start getting weird here. Right. Oh, okay, a few questions. I'll go Lee and then David.
Yeah, sorry. So I'm Alice. I stake 32 on Ethereum. I restake 32 on Ethereum. I behave badly on Ethereum. I get slashed there.
Yep.
Am I also slashed on Ethereum?
That we'll come to that in the slashing section. Yeah. Don't worry. Okay. It's coming. It's coming.
Now I'm below 32 on both.
Right.
Am I kicked off of both as a validator?
Yeah, there's different models, and we'll cover those when we get to the slashing portion. Yeah, David. I'm just going to do David, and then I'm going to keep rolling. So.
One of the basic rules in credit markets is you can't pledge the same asset twice. We see this not just in the United States, but almost everywhere. How is this okay?
This is not a pledge of...
Not a lawyer, not a regulator, have no idea.
It's economics.
It's not still what it is.
I think David has a point, because it's like, pledging the asset once, you have a certain default probability. If you pledge the asset in two places, the default probability is double.
Fraud.
That aside, even if the rules of the game allow you, there is a cost to it. Yeah.
You can have a mortgage and a home equity line on your home, and that's not...
Yeah, I think that's a better analogy.
100% you do.
All right, I think I'm losing the room a little bit. Let's bring it back and keep it rolling. We've still got, there's a lot of pictures to get through here, so. Cool. So the second version of restaking I wanted to kind of run through is this delegated restaking, again with native ETH. So we have our original model where Alice is staking with Ethereum, and now we have Bob, and Alice wants to use Bob to delegate her stake to the Ethereum protocol. So she delegates to Bob, Bob restakes, the Ethereum protocol issues the rewards to Bob, Bob issues the reward less fee to Alice. So now, now here we are, under this delegated native restaking, this stake, this 32 ETH in the Ethereum protocol, is also accountable for the actions of Alice and Bob. So there's two people that could potentially get this ETH slashed. And the ETH, or the tokens, are also kind of encumbered by two different sets of protocol rules. So this is the same as before, except Bob now intermediates the running of the second protocol. And
I need to ask a question.
Sure.
When you stake the ETH in the Ethereum protocol, the protocol itself has to give you something that you will then present to Bob, right? What is that something? Is that ETH, or is it a different thing?
So in this version, which we're still calling native, Alice stakes and she has what's called a withdrawal credential from the Ethereum ecosystem. Yeah, that withdrawal credential can be pointed to a contract on Ethereum, which then handles the second layer of staking.
And it creates a token that you can then use for staking and re-Ethereum.
It's not exactly a token, but it's a contract that controls the assets when you do withdraw them from Ethereum. So it's kind of like a trustless custody in the Ethereum smart contract that enforces the second layer of slashing penalties if Bob ends up misbehaving on Alice's behalf.
Okay, that clarifies my question. Can I raise an issue?
Probably not right now. Yeah. Something just fell, but I think this is still on. Okay. We're going to keep this rolling, keep this party going. Right. So why is this called native? It's called native because Alice is still interacting directly with Ethereum, right? So her stake is the 32 ETH that she owns that she's using to secure the Ethereum consensus layer. Hopefully you can kind of see where this is going when we start talking about non-native tokens and non-native restaking. Cool. Restaking number 3, self-restaking, but in the non-native setting, right? So now Alice is interacting with only the Ethereum protocol, right? She's not running a node on Ethereum. She doesn't care about Ethereum necessarily at all. And she restakes, and I put re in quotes here because she's not really restaking it. It's kind of staking in the first place. And she gets rewards from the Ethereum protocol for doing this thing. So the only reason this is called restaking at all is because this can take place through a protocol that also facilitates the other types of restaking. But really, this is more closely aligned with regular staking in the first place. So she takes these non-native tokens. This could be USDC. This could be like a Euro stablecoin. This could be wrapped Bitcoin, whatever. She provides it as economic security and Sybil resistance to the Ethereum protocol, earns rewards on it, but she's not really restaking. This is kind of redefining restaking as a marketplace for decentralized trust. And decentralized trust in this setting is usually referring to like the economic value of the capital at risk that Alice is like putting through this protocol here. And this is kind of the meme. It's hard to tell because these are grainy pictures, but basically the idea here is that self-staking and self-restaking kind of look like the exact same thing. The only thing is where that kind of process and enforcement takes place. The self-staking is enforced through the Ethereum consensus layer. The self-restaking is enforced through the smart contract on top of Ethereum. Just going to check my time. Cool. Still got plenty of time. Right. Last and final restaking mode that we're going to talk about, and then we can get to the liquefaction stuff, is delegated restaking with non-native. And the punchline here is very much similar to the previous slide, which is that if you just are talking about the Ethereum protocol and not Ethereum and Ethereum, Alice can delegate through Bob and receive the reward less fees in the same way that she does when she just normal delegated stakes through Bob in the Ethereum protocol. So this is kind of comparing the two pictures. If you kind of pull Ethereum to the side and kind of reset it, these pictures look the exact same. Cool. So that gets us to the kind of end of our different staking models. And hopefully these help kind of build up the intuition around how the tokens are flowing through all of these systems. Because now we get to the kind of important stuff, or most relevant stuff, with just how do you get liquidity over these positions. And this kind of circles back to Emin's question, which is how are these tokens actually represented in these systems? And this can be done through this liquid staking and liquid restaking tokens. So before we get into the liquidity stuff, let's talk about slashing real quick, because we haven't talked about that at all yet, right? So kind of the normal slashing mode is Alice is staking in the Ethereum protocol. This is our base case picture. And now we're going to like introduce these little tokens into the picture to kind of help visualize. As time passes, Alice now does something that the protocol sees as wrong. So in the Ethereum protocol, one such action is called an equivocation, which would be using the cryptographic key to sign two pieces of information that are in conflict with each other. That is an objective fault. So everyone can verify that signature. Both of those signatures say were signed by Alice, and that is sufficient proof to slash Alice's tokens, right? This is like the whole point of staking, or at least one of the main points of staking, is this collateral at risk, this capital at risk. And this is the accountability that's the protocol stick if Alice misbehaves according to those rules. So this is all like very standard stuff. And this has been around kind of since the early days of staking. Right. So how does restaking and slashing interact? And I want to call this re-slashing because, I don't know, whatever. Right. So we have our simplest version of restaking, which is self-restaking with the native asset, right? This is kind of restaking 101, the first slide that we covered. So Alice stakes to the Ethereum protocol. She's getting rewards. She also restakes through the Ethereum protocol and gets rewards from there. Now time is moving kind of down and to the right. And let's say Alice continues to do her job on the Ethereum protocol, but she equivocates on Ethereum, right? Now we have this problem that Emin was bringing up earlier, which is, okay, she's slashed on Ethereum, but Ethereum kind of hasn't seen anything attributable according to their protocol rules that she's done wrong. So now there has to be some level of communication between the two protocols where the Ethereum protocol knows that Alice's stake is no longer actually capital at risk because the capital is just gone. It's kaput. So the kind of this direction of communication is actually quite easy because the Ethereum protocol is actually a smart contract on Ethereum. It can read from the Ethereum state and say, there's some engineering details I'm hand waving away here, but it can read from the Ethereum state and say, hey, this protocol has been, or this validator has been slashed according to Ethereum. So on this kind of second order protocol, Alice is slashed as well. The other direction is slightly harder. So you could imagine if instead of the red arrows being pointing to the Ethereum protocol, they were pointing to Ethereum, then the Ethereum protocol would have to inform Ethereum. I should have named the other one something else. Sorry. Ethereum would have to inform Ethereum that Alice was slashed. And there's kind of a number of different design mechanisms in place for doing this, but it's very much it's like a lot more complicated, right? Because Ethereum is intentionally like completely oblivious to everything happening on its contract layer in terms of the consensus mechanism itself. So the validators who are running the consensus mechanism shouldn't have to depend on an external protocol to determine if that stake is actually there. So,
but economically, why would that matter? I mean, Ethereum needs the stake for what it does, but the restaked amount is really just a derivative of the original one, so you don't really have to do it the other way around.
Well, the issue here is that if Alice gets slashed on the restaking platform on Ethereum, now she doesn't actually own that stake anymore. So she can do whatever she wants on the Ethereum protocol, and there's no actual capital at risk, which is the whole like point of having stake in the first place. So basically, like it's like I was using money for two things. It disappeared on one thing. The other thing has to become aware that that money's no longer mine. Like it could belong to someone else, and it still could like be economic value in some sense, but it's not controlled by me. So I don't care like what happens to it because it's already gone.